going on, everybody? You are live with Osiris. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. The world is filled with storytellers, and I, along with my guests, are here today in the Author's Lounge to help educate and inspire the young generation of writers and creators. Now, my guests are professionals in publishing, writers from a wide range of formats, and successful entertainers. They will provide beneficial advice on what to do and what not to do on your path to success. So, without further ado, I'll present to you our next guest. Let's go. I'm so excited for this one. I've been waiting for a long time to talk to this guy right here. So let me first say that Sam Humphries, he's the one who hooked me up with my man here. But it's a short story that I will get into. But first, let me just do a quick introduction to this wonderful human being, and then I'll share the story, and we'll hop right into all the questions and the conversation. So our guest today, he is a SAG-AFTRA actor, also known as a union actor for both stage and film. He's also a screenwriter, or a writer altogether. He is a producer. He also recently hosted an award show over the weekend. I'll let him give you all some details, as he doesn't just host one award show, he's hosted other shows. And in addition to that, he has just run a 10th episode of his frequent visit on General Hospital. So how has that been for you, my good friend? We have here BJ Lane. What's going on, buddy?
What up, Osiris? So good to see you again. I can't wait to share how we know each other. But I just shot not too long ago my 10th episode on General Hospital. I play a paramedic on the show, which viewers and listeners will soon find out that it might be a little bit of typecasting because of my background. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a story. So while we are on that topic, right?
Yep.
So many people know that I'm still currently as of the time of this recording, still currently in the United States Air Force. But my man here, he and we actually met at Fort Sam Houston, San Antonio, Texas, in medical school for the Air Force, where he was a medic. So, sometimes life imitates art. But, man, so, dude, this was in 2015 when when we initially met, and we just kicked it off immediately. And I didn't even realize at the time, BJ, that you were an entertainer. You just gave me those vibes, because before, I was a kitty in the background. I was like, "What is that?"
That's my fluff machine right here. So it's my cat Halen.
I thought I was seeing things for a second. I'm like, oh, a cat. But I love cats, man. But yeah, and we just kicked it off so well, and just such good energy. And how this came about with BJ and I was because I was put into contact with Sam Humphries through another friend of mine, Ferdinand Gerdinand, and he put me in contact with a few of his connections, and one of them was Sam. And Sam, just what he represented, before I saw what his credits were, before we represented, what he represented was in the same community as my oldest son. After we did his interview, he put me in contact with a few people, and one of them was BJ. As soon as I saw BJ Lange, I said, there's no way that this is the same guy.
I mean, what's the chance that somebody's got the exact same name? Or the same ugly face? I mean, let's just be honest.
Dude, it's not an ugly face. And look at the eyes, man. Though, you see your headshot, bro? Those eyes are so dreamy. No, but I'm just rambling on. But it's been really good to see you. So how have you been since that time in the military?
So Osiris and I met, like you said, at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio at the Medical Education and Training Campus, where I was going through my medic program to learn how to be a medic, or a 4NO for those that are in the know. It was good. Now, shortly thereafter, after we met, I dealt with my cancer diagnosis, so we'll probably dig into that here in a little bit. But it's been good. I came back from San Antonio in June of 2016, and then continued back on in my regularly scheduled actor life. So I'm an actor, comedian, host, MC. As you mentioned, I produce a little bit, and I write as well. So the majority of my work, though, is that as an actor, both as a SAG-AFTRA actor and as an equity actor on stage. So I try to do whatever I can to pay the bills. Thus, a struggling artist here in Los Angeles, living the life. But the last few years have been good. I've been busy and continuing to grow. I'm not afraid to admit I'm 45 years old, going on 12. So I'm still in the throes of putting in the work in my Hollywood acting life.
Yeah, and what a transition that was. I do remember that time period where it wasn't like necessarily vocalized into the masses back in tech school,
Totally.
or the med training school for those who don't know, who aren't in the know, right? But I do remember you talking to me. We had several conversations, and it was a talent show that you hosted there, and we did some stuff together too. It was a good time, but I do remember like that year, 2016, that there was something going on with you, and it eventually led to you being medically retired from the Air Force. And so, I mean, for the time that you're in, man, you definitely had a lot of contributions to the service, and still represent the service even as a veteran. Somebody I've seen, like one of the shorts that you did. Of course it would escape me, but you did it with Sam, and I remember. And what's the name of it again?
So
Starts with an S.
It's a flagged, and that was part of the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. That's how Sam Humphreys and I met. For those, if you didn't see Sam's interview with Osiris, you should. But Sam played Tom Thumb opposite Hugh Jackman in The Greatest Showman. So we worked together a couple of months ago, and that's how I met Sam.
Yeah, and in that film, and appreciate the shout out as well. Shout out again to you, Sam. But like, in that movie, in Flagged, I just did one thing that really stuck out to me was when you looked at your reflection. You like put the hat on and you just rendered a salute. Yeah. And I was like, man, he still represents so strong.
Totally.
It's like it's so embedded in you, man. And
that was an ad lib, by the way. That was one of the I put the hat on. I put my cover on.
Cover, yeah.
And they were shooting it over the shoulder to see me put it on. And I said, shoot the reflection and then let me do the salute before I jump into my next line of dialogue. And it was so powerful in that moment that they ended up keeping it in the film.
Oh, you gotta love it when you can just ad lib and nothing that had anything to do with anything other than you're in character.
Yeah.
And sometimes what you actually endured in reality comes out into the character. And just in knowing just what you represented to the service, it was so wonderful. But also knowing your transition back into Hollywood, knowing that, hey, you know what? You were contributing. You would have been such a powerhouse as a medic within the Air Force. But you know what? We'll still take care of you. The service will still take care of you. Go ahead and go back home and do your thing. And it was ironic because I actually went to Edwards Air Force Base in April.
Not far from me.
Not far from you. And it's somehow, some way, I ended up losing my way, man, and got like embedded into that whole cyclone of the military, and then eventually got sucked out of my love for much of everything that included the entertainment industry, and me wanted to go to California to begin with, which was to have some sort of correlation and connection with the entertainment industry. That was always a goal of mine. And I didn't even know I was going to get orders to be about an hour and some change away from Los Angeles until I found out about it. And then, but life happens, and it's funny how we came back together, and all these years later, man, it was like it's meant to be. You know what I mean?
So crazy, considering where we were, waking up early, doing PT, getting into formation, marching over to Metsi, going to class, maybe seeing each other, at lunch or the student activity center. I mean, just like so crazy. But you're right. I mean, the things that we learned both in the service and in life, and how we utilize that in our art, totally shows through. And that's why this piece that I helped to co-write, Flagged, both in terms of my character and the storyline, that is Flagged, which we'll have the link below if you guys want to watch it. It's a 5-minute short that we did for Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. I'm so grateful for that, and for the experiences that I had in the military, albeit my career was unfortunately cut short due to a testicular cancer diagnosis. I still continue to not only use the skills of being an airman, but like the specific skills that I learned as a medic. I still teach part-time for the UCLA David Geffen School of Medicine. I teach EMT and paramedicine skills that I learned in the Air Force now. Like I still do that because I didn't want to lose that. So now that's why I mean that I feel like I'm a little bit typecast because I play a paramedic on General Hospital.
Yeah.
So, but whatever. I jokingly say that because I'm happy to work. But the nice thing is for production, they don't have to hire a technical advisor. They're not going to have to coach me or, they don't have to worry that I'm going to screw up something as far as action is concerned because I already know the skill set as that is I'm a licensed EMT.
Yes, sir. And, while on that topic, right, it helps when it comes to having just such a variety of experience in your life that you can that pertains to different roles that you have as an actor. But when it came to General Hospital, how much easier do you think it was for you it's none of this stuff is easy, but how much easier do you think it was for you to hop into that character on General Hospital, given your background as a medic?
That's a good point. Well, I think the nice thing, there's two things that first popped in my head when you asked the question. The first thing is the relevant experience I have as an actual medical professional, like we just talked about. And the second thing is that the bulk of my career is improvisation. I teach, I study, I perform improvisation. I'm a Second City graduate. I teach at the Second City, which, if you're not familiar with it, is the almighty and the mecca of improv comedy, and has been since the late 1950s. So my comfortability as an actor with my foundation in improv is there, and I'm able to leverage my experience as I know the skill that I'm going to be doing, whether that's like I'm treating a patient in the scene or I'm giving a report to the nurse about what's happening with this patient. Like, I know how to actually do that because I have done that in real life. So I think it really made me a little bit more loose to play the character, where I'm not so stuck on learning my dialogue and guessing at what the action's going to be, because while I'm here, if I get a script, I'm not going to know how they're going to shoot it or what sort of props they're going to have. So, but in my mind, because I actually do this job, I'm able to go, okay, well, they're probably going to have this and they should have this. Okay, cool. So then, so it makes it easier, whereas another actor may not be that comfortable, especially if the director goes, hey, can you change something? Or the producer calls down and says, we need you to do this instead with your movement. That could trip some people up. That's why I always tell people, study improv, so that makes you really loose. You're not stuck and rigid in the way that you are as an artist.
So with improv, right, and I love what you said about
Let's talk improv, Osiris. Let's talk about improv.
Man, let's talk improv, man, because improving to me is, and I haven't been in an improv comedy.
I taught some workshops at Fort Sam. I don't know if you remember that, but I taught some workshops at the Base Theater. Like, they let me go teach. Yeah, man, and dude, and you had a good good turnout, and your turnouts even now, just with what you're doing with social media and how people are gravitating towards you and what you're doing as a host, man, it's so incredible. It really is so good to see how you turned around that cancer, man. Like my wife, like, she went through a cancer scare and survived, and just seeing how she endured it and how she overcame it, and still dealing with the thought of will it or will it not come back, or how will this impact the anxiety.
Yeah, man, but just seeing how you turned it around, and now, with your improv, which has always been there, how has that helped you as an artist altogether?
Oh, well, I'll say this. So let me give you a little bit of backstory here. So in middle school and high school, I did theater. I always knew I wanted to get into entertainment. My dad is a big goofball, so I followed his path. In junior college, I studied acting at St. Louis Community College. I worked in radio for a number of years. I jumped on some tours. I did dinner theater for a long time, did a bunch of short films and commercials in the St. Louis area, years of touring and hosting events, and then I eventually found my way out to Los Angeles in 2009. This is way before I joined the Air Force Reserve, so I already had a busy career following my life. You know, I've always been going down that path. In 2004, I did a full-on improv program in St. Louis with a guy named Bill Cott. You might recognize him as Mr. Larry Tate from Disney's Wizards of Waverly Place, or Dude, Where's My Car? He's one of the Zoltan guys. This Is Us. He was the mailman that cried and stuff. Dana Carvey show. He was on SNL. Anyway, he's an old Second City alum, and I always wanted to go to Second City, but I didn't continue that path until I got out to Los Angeles. But I completed his program in St. Louis at the Improv Trick. That was a fundamental time for me because it really started to anchor my appreciation in comedy and performance and theater. Using all of that with both in terms of short form and long form improv, which that's a whole different discussion that I know people are probably going to wonder about. But I completed his program, and then when I moved out to LA, I continued to help him with his school, the Improv Trick, which he still teaches at, and I teach there as well. And then I went through Improv Olympic, and then Second City. Then I got hired to teach at Second City. Then I enlisted in the military, and then I completed UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade. So I have a lot of experience in some of the most recognizable institutions that teach improv and improv comedy and sketch comedy. So I think that helped me be able to get through some uncomfortable situations in my life and be able to not be so rigid in my thinking that I could crack a... Here's an example. Here's a perfect example. People always say, like, how do you use improv or specifically just comedy in general to help break the tension? And one thing that comes to mind, I had graduated my medic program. I was doing my clinical rotations down at Brooke Army Medical Center, what is now San Antonio Military Medical Center.
Yep.
SAMC. And I was doing the ER shifts, and a group of fellow medics and I, including Army medics, myself, and some of the other trainee Phase 2 medics, we had a traumatic arrest that came in. A woman was hit by a car. And when she came in, she was dead. And they did everything they could, but it was, and they got her off to the OR quick enough. But for about 3 minutes or so, she was in the ER, and like it was so much, so fast, it was so big, and we had all just graduated, and that was the first time actually I got to perform CPR on an actual human being. So anyway, cut to, we're cleaning up the trauma bay. It's messy. There's stuff everywhere. Now, I enlisted later in life, as you probably remember. I was a little bit older. I was 35 at this point in this story. And all of these young airmen, I remember them just kind of, seeing everything that was happening. It was heavy on them. They didn't really know where to go with this. And I ended up cracking like a silly, ridiculous joke in the moment. That was like a relatable joke, I don't remember what it was, but like that helped break the awkward silence, which opened the dialogue for us to be like, wow, that was crazy, huh? So that we can kind of have our critical incident stress management debrief about everything that we saw. And I think also being older was beneficial for me going in the military, because I saw things a little bit different. And of course, through the lens of comedy, helped me just to kind of not take life too serious. Not to say that what we don't do in the military, certainly as medics, is not serious, but to be able to know when and utilize that military and law enforcement often referred to uncomfortable or dark sense of humor.
Yeah. Oh gosh, dude, the dark sense of humor for sure. And I remember you mentioning your story when you as a medic was reminding me of when my time in mental health, when we were the topic when it comes to mental health is, and I'll go right back into the entertainment stuff, but just like the topic of mental health can be like it can be truly overbearing for many people in many aspects. And I remember doing so much, just a variety of different outreach, and I would often bring some sort of optimism to some of these circumstances. And a lot of it, with me, when I'm talking, I might say something so left field. It has nothing to do with it. But I also can appreciate the idea of breaking the ice. And I think I went into like some sort of a briefing at one point in time when we were on the topic of suicide, and I forgot what I said, and it wasn't unprofessional. It was probably not the time to say it. This was really young in my career, but when I said it, um, the commander at the time ended up pulling me to the side afterwards, and she was just telling me like, "Hey, no, we don't do that.
Oh no!
No jokey jokes. No jokey jokes when talking about suicide. But that that
I
is
rem-
what taught me.
I'd be curious to hear what the context was. Like, I understand. Like, I'm not saying you should crack jokes when it's inappropriate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I said
I get
something.
that.
Yeah, I can't. It was It was in 2016, but I think it was something along the lines of like make sure you don't. Yeah, if you're struggling with alcohol, for example, and make sure you don't drink yourself to death because that would be an unfortunate situation. But I said it in such a like a nonchalant manner that and I was smiling with it, but it was more of like it wasn't a smile like,
Yeah,
hey,
right.
don't do it. It was more like, hey, you don't want to drink yourself to death because that might not be a good idea. There's
Right.
other
It was
avenues
just
you can.
off the cuff.
It
Yeah.
sure was.
Yeah.
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 And I do that. And to this day, I still do stuff like that, man. But to get back on topic about, speaking of which, when it comes to alcohol or any sort of issues like that, at any point in your life, have you ever dealt with anything like that? I'm not asking substance related, but just any
Sure.
time where you may have struggled and had a relapse.
That's a great question. In regard, first of all, I don't drink and I don't smoke. Thank God.
Thank God.
Because it's already hard enough here in LA, and especially when I was younger. So I don't have that. But and this is a legit thing. Like, I'm addicted to sugar. Like, and I overeat and so that's always a struggle. And in regards to relapsing, obviously, I had my initial diagnosis in 2016 when we were down at Fort Sam Houston,
Yeah.
and then I relapsed the following year. My testicular cancer came back in my abdominal cavity, in my lymph nodes in 2017 while I was out on temporary disability or temporary retirement. And then in 2020, they finally permanently medically retired me from the Air Force, mostly due to all the nerve damage that I had from both the surgery and the chemotherapy and radiation. So, thank goodness that I don't drink or smoke or anything like that.
Thank God. I'm in the same boat as you, man. Like that stuff would do some damage to you. You lose your youth for sure. You have if you hadn't mentioned you were in 45, I thought you may have been like in your like lower 30s.
Yeah.
I sometimes forget people's age, especially because like depending on the energy and how vibrant they are,
Yeah.
it makes them appear younger even if you know what their age is. And so to me, it's like to me, age to that extent is not really indicative of how you feel.
Sure,
If you're like,
that's true.
Man, I've met people in their 70s and 80s just jacked or in shape and has no bearing on their age. They just stayed consistent with it, man. But for you, speaking of consistency, I would imagine the stamina that you have to have in order to endure the endurance of Hollywood and show business altogether. But because you wear so many different hats and you do so much, at what point in time do you even get to sit back and relax? And I'm not saying what you do is not relaxing, but like sit back and wait for all the noise and like
That's
kind of
tough.
just have quiet time.
Yeah, that's Cyrus. That's a tough question because living this dream to pursue my artist life and the acting life in Hollywood, I knew when I moved out here that it was I knew out of high school that if I was going to pursue this, it was a long game. That's one of the reasons why I didn't enlist sooner. But I always knew that I wanted to serve, and after serving in Civil Air Patrol, volunteering, I should say, in Civil Air Patrol for many years, I wanted to, do it for real. So I enlisted in the reserve. That I knew I could never go full time, and that I had to go guard or reserve because I already have a full time career. That is my commitment. You can't really half-ass your acting career. You need to give it your everything. I mean,
Right.
This is literally the hardest job that I'm familiar with that anybody can get into. It's not just skill. It's also your business practices and your networking and how much you hustle and your training and all of that. So I think a lot of times students will ask me, hey, what's the hardest thing about being an actor in LA?
Yeah.
And the truth is, the hardest thing that I see about being an actor in LA is being an actor in LA.
In LA.
So that's it. I mean, it's I live in one of the most expensive cities in the country. And let me be clear, I'm here because I love what I do and I need to be here for work. However, if I were to move anywhere else, I would be saving so much more money. If I move back, I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. If I move back to St. Louis, I'm going to be saving so much more money, and I can be closer to my family and all that stuff. And that's another sacrifice that we make, to be away from family. It's just like, being in the military, that I have to be here, for work. And that's not to say that I can't take time off or whatever like that and book out, but you run the risk. And the old joke is, and this is fairly accurate, as soon as you book out with something and you say you're going on vacation, or book a flight, the moment you're at the airport, all of a sudden your agent calls you and says, hey, you have an audition. So, and that has 100% happened to me.
Wow, man.
Yeah, it's a long game. It's a long game, and you just that's where it is. So what are my ways to relax and kind of get away?
Yeah.
So first of all, I volunteer for the U.S. Forest Service as a fire lookout. I do that at least once or twice a month. That's kind of my mental health getaway. It's about an hour and 40 minutes up this really beautiful road, California Highway 2, known as the Angels Crest Highway, and I sit up in this cab, this tower, and beautiful for 10 hours, and I basically just look out for fires, and there's nobody around, and I can see 60 miles in all directions. And sometimes I bring my ham radio, and I'll play around on that or whatever. But for the most part, like, I'm up there with nature, and that's one of my getaways. I ride motorcycles still. I fly airplanes. I'm a pilot, and
that's awesome, dude.
And doing tons of improv. Improv is always my my go-to. Yeah.
How did you get into becoming a pilot?
Great question. In 2006, while I was back home in St. Louis, I was taking flying lessons at an airport that's no longer there. Rest in peace, 3SQ. And I saw these guys in old BDU uniforms walking around. I'm like, what are these guys? And my flight instructor was like, oh, that's Civil Air Patrol. That's the Air Force Auxiliary. They do search and rescue stuff. And I was like, that looks pretty cool. And that's how I ended up getting in CAP.
Yeah.
But I started flying in 2006 in St. Louis. And then I actually, when I moved out to LA in 2009, it took me a little bit, but I found Glendale Community College here. It's the cheapest place to, if you wanted. I was like, well, I'm already flying, so why don't I go and get another degree? So I went through their program there and started flying out here as well. But yeah, I've been flying pretty much since 2006.
It's
awesome. Amazing, and I would totally suggest people do that. Side note to the lady viewers out here and listeners, go to the 99s, that's 99s.org, and look up their flight training scholarships that the 99s offer. That's Amelia Earhart's old nonprofit. So they do flight training, free flight training for women. And there's like Women in Aviation International, tons of different things. To my fellow veterans out there, get connected with this nonprofit, which I'll need to circle back to remember what it is. It has escaped me in the moment. But there's a great nonprofit that helps vets get connected to flying as well.
Oh, that's incredible, man. Just it remind you saying that reminded me a lot of with Tom Cruise, right? I remember watching an interview with Tom Cruise, and he
Sure.
had said something about. I think it had nothing to do with Mission Impossible. I think
Hmm.
it was during Top Gun, Maverick, and I think it was on some interview that he flies or he has a flying license, and I don't even remember it in full details. But you saying that reminded me of that, and. Goodness, the word Artag Nation is coming to me for some
Oh yeah,
reason.
that's it. Yeah, RTAG Nation is the name of the nonprofit that helps vets get connected. Vets can
Okay.
become airline pilots for free, basically.
Oh, nice,
So,
nice, nice.
and
Thank you.
I do not fly for money. I just fly for fun as a private pilot.
I bet you that's exhilarating too, just getting on there and just
Oh, it's
getting into the
great.
sky.
Totally.
That might be something I may consider actually. It's just
You should
I
think
felt,
about it. It's a blast.
dude. After watching Top Gun Maverick, I felt like I could be a pilot.
That's how I felt when I first watched Top Gun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but on another note, so you were it being away to sacrifice. You're no stranger to sacrifice at all, whether you're in uniform or you're not. Just where you are, and that speaks to this point. I just did a video yesterday talking about focusing on you and loving yourself. It may be much more difficult for those who like have children involved or have spouses or whatever the case may be. But for you in particular, right, with your family being in Missouri and you being in Los Angeles, California, would there still be this sort of these opportunities for you if you weren't right where the action is?
Yeah, as far as acting is concerned, yeah, I was already doing that before I moved out here anyway. Now, of course, LA and New York are still kind of the hubs, and I say kind of because in the last few years things have changed. For instance, the majority of my auditions now are all self-tape. I self-tape on this wall right back here. So that's how I send in my audition tapes, whereas back in the day we would have to go to the casting director's office and do the audition. So things have changed, but St. Louis still has a very vibrant film and independent community. I could still audition for stuff up in Chicago. They still shoot like Chicago Med up there,
Yeah.
and formerly Chicago Fire. But Hollywood is changing a lot right now, and it's a very scary time to be an actor and to be even in the industry here in Los Angeles. We are losing a lot of our productions. That's why the president was talking about these tariffs for film and whatever, and which I don't think are going to be very helpful. The point is we need to bring productions back not only to California but to the States overall, because it's cheaper to shoot in Budapest. Tons of people are going to Budapest. Tons of people go up to Canada to shoot. I mean, that's like the number one right now. So how do we bring things here? And it's a scary time to be here in Los Angeles, but I still feel like it could come back, which is why I'm still here. And your priorities are going to shift no matter where you are. So if somebody's watching this or listening to this and they go, "Oh, well, I want to get into it, but my family is this or whatever," things are going to change. I mean, things could change for me, and my priorities are going to change for me as well. So maybe I will get to the point where I say, okay, I don't need to be here anymore. Can I still get my representation, my agents to submit me for stuff? Can I send in a self-tape? Can I work as a local hire in a different market, whether that be Atlanta, Chicago, or LA if I were to move back home? So there's a lot of different things to think about, but yeah, the technology right now has changed things, and we need to get productions back here.
Yeah, no, you to that point of you mentioning, I have certainly been hearing a lot of the noise regarding like with the business in Los Angeles. Also, obviously, I'm an outsider when it comes to what happens in Los Angeles, but just in hearing about the productions and aside from just the tariffs and how people are more and more more and more creators and more production companies are being in the independent category.
Yeah.
A lot of indie filmmakers are out there wanting to create their own work and creating their own production companies and being able to then support it in that notion without having to necessarily go into Hollywood. But I do remember a time where Hollywood, even when I was a child, man, that I remember always wanted to go out there. It was like, that must be the place, that in New York.
Totally.
But times changed, and I can't begin to imagine how it was when there was the writer's strike, and then during the COVID times. What was that like for you? What was work like for you during that time?
During all of those times. Well, I think that was
Yeah.
kind of the trifecta of what got some of the things that got us to where we are now.
Uh-huh.
The biggest threat is all the productions that are outside of LA, hands down. Like that's crushing it. So whether that means that our governor, who's already working on tax incentives or tax credits, sometimes even tax rebates for productions to be here. I know the president was talking about working something out. I'll believe it when I see it.
When I
There's a
see
reason
it,
why
yeah.
I'm from Missouri, so the Show Me State. So some other things though that kind of help to get us where we are, I feel, are both COVID. There was a big change there with COVID. That was a rough time here. Then we had the SAG-AFTRA and the writers' strike. Side note: I was a strike captain for 118 days at Paramount Studios, wearing my blue tutu and my blue wig out there every single day while we were on strike for the TV theatrical contract. And then just this last year, in the new year in January, we had the wildfires out here. So that, in addition to all the productions already leaving, just decimated what we have here. There's still work here. Like I'm still, submitting for stuff. I'm still trying to connect with people for independent stuff, and I still feel that there's a possibility. It's just that we really need to put something in place, or there's a big risk that Hollywood will not be what it was.
With Hollywood, one of the biggest lessons I learned just in the industry when I was working on Drop Dead Diva, like in 2009, when they came to Atlanta, was the importance of relationships. Like the business is not mostly, but a great portion of it is built on relationships, and who knows this person, or who knows that person, and opportunities seemingly kind of fluctuate between who knows who. How has that played into your favor? I know you put in a lot of work, but
Networking and stuff.
Yeah. Like, what's the importance behind networking in general, in your experience?
Well, here's an example. I met somebody probably 10 years ago. Okay, actually, let me back that up, because that's more film and TV specific. But even just gigs in general, because I do a lot of host work. So I hosted this thing called Game Riot. It was a battle of the bands and video game thing. It was branded under MTV2, blah, blah, blah. I did this three summers, and then that turned into the World Series of Video Games, which was on CBS Sports. Back when it was Game Riot, one of our tour managers, a guy named Matt, worked on the production. Cut to Matt left, went on to do other things. He works in concert promotions, production, that kind of stuff. So that's why he was there. Didn't talk to him for years. In 2014, so this is like 8 years later, I get a phone call. And this is the first time I've ever shared this publicly. So Matt calls me and he goes, "Hey man, you still hosting stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course. Like doing whatever I can, man. I'm trying to hustle out here, trying to survive out here in LA." So this is 2014. And he goes, "Well, I'm a producer now for WWE. We want to fly you down to the Performance Center in Orlando to audition to be one of our announcers, like the arena announcer, basically, kind of the setup, hyping the crowd and all that stuff, and doing other things too. And hopefully working the way towards being like an on-air broadcast or whatever." And I hadn't watched wrestling for many years. So I had to do a lot of research here before I flew down there. And then I did the audition, and anyway, I didn't get it. And then the next year I enlisted in the Air Force Reserve. However, why do I bring that up? Because I hadn't talked to Matt for years. So that relationship, though, and him knowing my capabilities, we had each other on social media. So we still, would see each other's stuff. And then I hadn't talked to him since that gig in 2014. I mean, really, I hadn't sat down with him. And then in 2022, he called me and goes, "You want to host something?" I said, "Well, what is it?" He goes, I'm producing LA Fleet Week, which is, our big Fleet Week here in LA on the West Coast. He was like, we need an MC, we need a host, whatever. Yeah. And so now I have been doing that for the last 4 years. So
that's awesome.
All because of that connection that I made with Matt. And so thank you, Matt Hanrahan, for always thinking about me. But it's those connections, and that's why people will talk shit on, like, I'm not going to do a student film, like, I don't want to do student film, I'm a real actor. And listen, if I'm not doing anything else and I'm available and I like the role, I'll do student film. Now, student films generally for SAG actors, they have a film agreement with the school or whatever, so that union actors can do it. You for the most part, you probably won't get paid. It's copy credit meals or whatever. Sometimes, like on senior thesis or whatever, they might have a small budget or whatever, which I just did one not too long ago for CSUN, which I loved, California State University at Northridge. Like a year ago, it was beautiful. They just were at an award show, and it got some accolades. But that's why you want to go and make these connections, because these, even 10 years ago when I was student films all the time, those student directors, those student writers, those student producers are now the actual in the industry people. Yeah. So you make those connections. If I'm not busy, I'm going to do it, and that's why networking is such a big deal. So be a quality individual, be a good, caring, compassionate person, do the job the way you would want someone to do it. And maybe be a little helpful. Don't be a doo-doo head out there, and don't think you're too cool for school.
No, exactly that thought. Some people look down on certain things just because it's not what they wanted. Oh, that is beneath me, so I'm not going to do that.
Cyrus, I wasn't going to do a lot of hosting stuff for that reason, because I pushed it away. When I moved to LA after I spent years touring, and I hosted spring break stuff and Maxim Spring Break for years. I hosted spring break in Panama City from 2006 to 2013, and that was just like one-offs. Those were just gigs for me. And I should have followed through with that. But going back to what you were saying, I pushed it away because I was like, I'm not a host, I'm an actor, which is dumb because really, I could do both, and I should be doing both.
Yeah, and when you're good at it too, that's the other thing. Like when you are actually highly skilled, proficient at both, you are going to have just a plethora of opportunities. For me, right, when I decided to host this show and do this show, I was strictly doing writing. I was just sticking straight to just writing books. I hadn't even stepped away from screenplays. I was just focusing on books. And then it came to opportunity to at the conference where I was asked if I can go there as an indie publisher, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that, because at the time I'm like, I'm just going to focus on me. But I know one of my strong suits is being able to like lead others, have like a transformational leadership style, bringing the best out of people and being able to like push them into the right direction to live out something that's like deep in here. But the next year, which was early this year, I decided to go on as an indie publisher, and then all of these opportunities happened. And then when I brought this show, the Authors Lounge, when I actually brought it back, because it was. In this format that we're doing it in, BJ, it was nothing like this. I was just sticking to just audio because I didn't want to get on camera. I was against.
You were afraid, or were you nervous?
No, I didn't see a purpose in it because I thought, I don't know. And I also didn't have social media because I was against, my bias to social media was that it was just a negative place. There was toxicity everywhere, and I didn't want to be involved in it. I didn't want any correlation, any connections to it. But the idea of social media continuously came to me throughout my times of doing book signings and then just doing promotional work. When I would go to libraries and do local events, they would always say you should have at least an Instagram or a TikTok. And at the time, I was like, TikTok, China, US,
I know,
all this extra
I know.
stuff.
I still think about that sometimes.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know about TikTok. Maybe Instagram. Maybe. I don't know. And so then I had an epiphany like at the end of December. And this wasn't some New Year's resolution type of an ordeal. It just kind of timed out that way. Where I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. And I talked to my wife. She said, yeah, I'll help you make the account. And I was like, let's just shoot for it. I'll figure everything else out. And then as I did it, I was just promoting my books and some of my authors' books. And then eventually it became something. I had this intuition, and this voice that said, bring the Authors Lounge back. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, why? I didn't even know. But then as I decided, okay, what's the format? What's the message going to be? And I started researching. I'm like, there's not many people out there who actually are doing this in a format where you're doing a hybrid of publishing industry and the entertainment industry into one hub who looks like me. And so I'm like, there may actually be some space for me in that if I create this type of a platform. And then I did it, and it took off, dude.
Good.
It took off. And then people, because I'm the type of person who also likes to talk to people and make connections for no other reason other than I just like talking to people.
Me too.
I'm just genuinely curious of people, and I also feel like they can sense the sincerity in my approach. I don't want anything from anybody. I'm not trying to be sneaky or get one under somebody. I'm like, dude, that's not what I'm here for. I just want to put out a message to people to help educate and inspire people, specifically like the younger generation of creators and the young generation of writers, because I did a lot of events at schools, elementary and middle schools, and those middle school students were really kind of foggy. And I also took my mental health experience, and I realized people are lost, man. So I just want to help people. But like this with you and I, and with Sam and other people, it's just there's been so much magic that's been happening here. Now I'm back into screenwriting because a guy who I interviewed was interested in the script that dealt with some stuff, and he was asking me, "Can you write me something?" I'm like, "Yo, yeah, that's easy. I can write it. You do what you do." But sorry, I'm going on a little bit.
No, you're good.
But to get to your point, yeah, just about how important networking is, and also just being sincere, with it. But yeah, well, I'll ask you just a couple more questions before I let you go. But
Send it.
Yeah. So, what are you working on next, man? Or what are you working on now? Or how many projects are you working on now? It's probably the more appropriate question.
Currently, as of the recording of this video, I just got done hosting LA Fleet Week, which is why my voice is raspy. It was 4 days, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. hosting on stage, not including pre-production and post-production times. Saturday, I hosted the Military and Veterans and Entertainment Awards Gala, an inaugural event award show in Beverly Hills. Which,
see you there next year?
Fingers crossed, man. You got to put the podcast in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming up soon, something I shot will air. That's all I can say.
Yep.
So that's already in the can, as it were. And then I got a bunch of comedy festivals coming up here that I'm going to be performing with my two-man improv partner. My buddy Josh and I have been doing shows together for over 11 years. We have a two-man improv comedy duo. We're basically... we perform for like an hour based on the suggestion of a word and just improvise. It's an absolute blast. We're going to be in Tampa in August. I'm really looking forward to that. It's the Countdown Improv Festival. It's only solos, duos, and trio improv, hence Countdown 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
And I know we're going somewhere international, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I'll put the link below, and you can follow me on the socials and see what I'm up to. I'm curious. Did you happen to see the work that I was doing with the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, AFW2?
No.
Yeah. So
I can check that out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got enrolled in the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program when I got sick with cancer back in 2016. And then I was doing their adaptive sports in the hopes of going to the Department of Defense Warrior Games. I was doing that through 2017, got on the high performance track when I was selected to potentially go to Warrior Games and compete in like adaptive wheelchair basketball, archery, sitting volleyball. Great stuff. And then in late 2017, the sports psychologist that was there noted that I worked at the Second City and that I teach improv in the civilian world. And he goes, "Why don't you want to come teach improv here?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So in 2018, I came under a defense contract teaching improv for these wounded, ill, and injured service members and their caregivers, teaching them how to use improv as a healing tool, as a life skill for resiliency. And it was amazing. And I did that basically up until just a few weeks ago. Absolutely some of the most rewarding work I have ever done in my life.
You have to have a special type of heart to be able to give yourself to so much and to so many people willingly without any thought of anything else other than I'm just doing this out of pure love. some of it you don't get paid for, some of it you get paid for, but regardless, you're doing it for the impact, and that's something very special, especially because you yourself are somebody who has been on the other side of these medical conditions, that you can actually show validity in your approach, that hey, it's not that I'm somebody who feels for this community who wants to help it, but I'm also one of you.
Correct. I'm a fellow warrior in the program, and that's why the warriors really connect with me. I understand that they're going through the med board. I understand all of that turmoil, and I remember how it was when I was going through my stuff and when I relapsed. Just the struggles that it was, and I love obviously improv comedy. I love to teach to the people that want to be taught, and really showcase what it can do. To take someone who's never done any sort of playful games, or any sort of theater training or whatever. Someone who maybe enlisted at the age of 18 and has never tried to do some sort of improv game. It's a trip to watch them and then really see what they can do with it. Now, I teach applied improv, so in this regard, I teach performative improv as well, but we basically take improv outside of the theater and focus it on the psychological and well-being benefits of improv. That's like my specialty. I do it with corporate clients as well, professional development and whatever, but really the connection, the team building, thinking outside the box, strengthening our uncertain tolerance, those are the highlights and the real benefits that these warriors get. So being one of them, I think, really helps me and gives me a leg up to understand where they are.
No, for sure. And when I was a substance abuse counselor within the Air Force, I always felt like I was out of place because I didn't actually go. I wasn't a substance abuser, and I don't mean that in a derogatory manner.
Yeah.
Meaning, I didn't because I don't drink. I didn't have any sort of narcotics or anything like that. I knew the material, and I knew from a sincere place how to help people, but there was a disconnect there. But there's a lot to be said when you can absolutely connect with the people through actual experiences and being able to advocate for them from your own experiences. Like, you can speak to the military on, hey, for those who are interested, right? There's always a place for you if you want to go into Hollywood or into the entertainment business. Don't think that this is the only way. And me knowing you were somebody in uniform and seeing you on the other side and seeing that, okay, it's not hyperbole he's speaking. There's people that you see on YouTube, all these influencers, and you just don't know what is real and what isn't. But I know in knowing you that you are an example for many people to follow. And I will for sure continue to stay in touch with you on that. Now, I guess I'll ask you one more question before I let you. Well, maybe two more questions.
Please do.
I forgot to ask you about the writing piece. Since you are also a writer, how has being a writer, I guess, helped? Well, let me ask you in this manner, because you also do a lot of improv. When it comes to your written work that you film, how much of it do you change on the fly? Do you have to go back to your script and change it, or is it cool if you are the actual screenwriter that you can just say whatever?
That's a great question. So let me back up and say that the large majority of my writing experience was with sketch comedy. I wrote sketch comedy. That's what we teach at the Second City. We teach how to use improv as a writing tool, what we call re-improvisation. And then we write out the stuff that comes from our improv sets. So that's really where I got my start. And then coming in as I got older, I started to realize, listen, don't wait for your phone to ring. And it's funny because every acting teacher tells you, every single actor with experience will tell you, you just need to get out there and create. And it took a while until I got to that point where I found the right friends or whatever, or the right groups to be able to get people together and say, hey, let's write this. Now, I don't like to be the head writer because I'm not a writer per se, but I'm a collaborative writer. I will co-write with somebody, which is really where I am best, like being in a writer's room, certainly in regards to comedy. That's my preferred. Yeah. But say Flagged, like this movie that I shot with Sam not too long ago and a group of other veterans, we all pitched ideas. And then we had a writer's room. We did that for a few weeks while we started to hash it out. Someone took the responsibility of being the head writer who took these ideas and then put it in there. Now, depending on the type of project it is, obviously if I'm doing something with comedy, like when I write these little sketches that we shoot, I have some flexibility because I'm self-producing it to say whatever. However, sometimes if you're shooting something for a client, I don't have the luxury of being too loose with my dialogue.
For sure.
And obviously, if I built it, then I know the history of the character and I know why they might say this. But literally on Flagged, we were changing dialogue up until we shot because we started to realize, by the way, it's a film challenge. It's the Disability Film Challenge. Thus, you basically have a weekend to knock out this film. Yeah. So you're writing, directing, producing, casting, shooting, editing, all of that over a weekend. So it's really fast. So you're starting to pick up on stuff, last minute, and it's like, hey, I should probably say this. It makes more sense. So there are those moments where things can change.
Yeah, no, for sure. You got to always be open and be flexible with your creativity, and it helps when you're working with other creative people, especially those who have like a similar mindset to the story. It makes it much easier for it to develop that way. So, last question for you, man.
What up?
Goodness, I have a lot, but the very last one I want to ask you is. So you got out of the military. Mm-hmm. You did your thing while you're in. You're in the entertainment business. You're doing your thing very well.
Returned back to my Hollywood career that I already had.
Yep. What is the biggest takeaway that you've learned while you in all of this? Like going through the cancer, going through military, and going through Hollywood. What's the biggest lesson you learned that you can give to somebody who may be struggling in that manner?
Is it in the context of how can someone take their military career and transition it to Hollywood or into the industry? Or are you saying just like during that period of my life, what's my biggest takeaway?
Yeah, your period in your life, which is like the biggest takeaway, because you went through a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it was a lot, and I won't bore your viewers and listeners to hear that whole story again. But you can go and watch my cancer speech on YouTube from 2018 or 2019 when I spoke about it. But I think the biggest thing, and this is not one size fits all. I realize that what I'm about to say can be controversial and might sound stupid to people who are in the throes of things. But I take a mindset that we have in improv where there are no mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. There are better choices, right? But there are no mistakes, right? Because we don't know what we're going to say when we get out there on stage, okay? Yeah. So if you accidentally trip on stage, that's a blessing because now I have that gift of, oh, Johnny, you're showing up to work drunk again, right? When you accidentally, Osiris, the actor, accidentally tripped, right?
Yeah.
Or if you call me by the wrong name or like, whatever happens. Sometimes things happen when we improvise because there's so much going on, and so. But there's no mistakes, right? So how do I apply that to life? And it took me a while. It took me until I relapsed in 2017, and I was in the middle of going through my radiation treatments where I was really depressed, and I didn't want to get up in the morning, and I didn't want to get out of bed, and I was throwing up every day, and I was on temporary medical retirement. I didn't know if they were going to let me back in the Air Force, which I so deeply wanted to. And, what was the right choice for me? And, I had a lot going on. But I said, instead of asking myself, as we should when we improvise, why is this happening to me? Say, why is this happening for me? Which sounds crazy because, like, I'm literally dying of cancer. I would rather not. But, like, how can I take this and flip it, which... Try to do that. I'm not saying you all the time and it's going to be there on the forefront because trust me, I get, upset, when I think about the anxiety that I have when it's time for me to go do a CT scan or when I find out that my friends get sick or whatever, So ask yourself, why is this happening for me instead of saying, why is this happening to me? How can you take that, right? So in my case, I got enrolled in the Air Force Wounded Warrior program. I was able to utilize me being in the program and me getting cancer to helping so many more. I have helped so many more airmen outside the Air Force than I did when I was in. And trust me, here's something that I still struggle with. I am proud of my service, but I'm disappointed in the length of my service, which is not easy. And I understand I had nothing to do with that. It was because I got cancer, but it's hard because I dreamt of being that Air Force medic that was helping. It's the reason why I became a medic. I mean, I could have went security forces. I could have went and, done whatever tactical cool thing or whatever, or just work services. Shots fired. So,
Shots fired.
So, but no, I wanted to be that medic, and I never got the opportunity to really go and do that, and to deploy and be downrange and take care of my brothers and sisters who need, So that's why, I'm still able to utilize some of that, and then I just changed it a little bit, and I'm still teaching. I still get connected in the veteran space. I still teach applied improv, not just with Air Force Wounded Warrior, but many other groups, including Veterans in Media and Entertainment. The American Legion reaches out to me to teach stuff. So, it's endless. It's just a matter of, like they say, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up, and how you get back up, and how you take those next steps, which I realize, to those of you out there that are dealing with stuff, I know it's not that easy, but do try to ask yourself, how can I take this? What's the silver lining? Just like the majority of my stand-up comedy, when you saw me do that talent show, that was moments. Actually, I think I had just gotten diagnosed. There was no med board at that point. I didn't even have chemotherapy or nothing. If I'm not mistaken, I got to remember the timeline. But I was just starting to dabble in changing up my stand-up comedy that I had forever, my tight five that I had, to talking about having testis cancer, because it not only helps me and gives me something fun, but gives me another lens to talk through.
Yep.
But it allows me to advocate, on this thing and testis cancer and the importance of it. It's the leading cause of cancer in men in the military is testis cancer. So there you go. It's the number one type of cancer, I should say, for men in the military. So
Man,
how about that? Right?
That is awesome. Yeah. No, I mean, that's awesome just to hear. Maybe not it being the leading cause of cancer in the military for men, but just the overall triumphant story that you have, and seeing where you are now, man. You definitely are doing well for yourself, and I am certainly good. We'll get you connected with the VME Connect.org for those who are curious on the website. I'll have that all the information that we have that require links will be in the description of this video, and also the audio recording of this will also be available there. So thank you so much, BJ. Hey, man, and on that note, I thank you so much for coming on to the show. And don't go anywhere. I'll talk to you for a minute or so. Right?
Sure. No, that's fine. I'm not going anywhere. Great to talk to you, Osiris. Really, really proud of what you're doing now and how you're getting involved in the arts. And continue to do that. Shout out, by the way, to the Armed Services Arts Partnership. If you're a service member, a vet, or family, and you would like free improv, sketch, stand-up, or storytelling classes, check out asap.org. You can do it online, or they also teach around the country as well.
Oh, perfect. And I will absolutely, that might be the first link I have at the top, so no one will miss that, because I think I might look into that. Do you have to be a veteran, or can you be active duty?
No. So active, guard, reserve, veteran, retired, family, can also, so spouses and all that. Improv, sketch, stand-up, storytelling, asap.org. Awesome organization. Stand-up comedy, boot camp, improv classes. I'll be teaching with them here soon. And if you are a veteran or active duty or guard, reserve, whatever, and you work in the entertainment space or the media space, and you want to get connected with the largest group of veterans in front of and behind the camera for free, VMEconnect.org. It's Veterans in Media and Entertainment. So get connected and let's do some stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to connect on that one as well, for sure.
Sure.
But hey, man, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune in to today's episode. Man, BJ was kind enough to give me 60 plus minutes, so thank you all so much. Hey, you all take some time to enjoy the remainder of your day, and I'll catch you all next time. Take care.
Bye, everybody.